Last but not least,
Peter.
Any power you want to tell us about?
I don't have one. I just saw the ad.
you're in.
Deadpool was one of those hyped films that sat in development hell for years, probably going through multiple rewrites and cleanups, making for an excellent film that made great use of its story structure and humor. The jokes were never the funniest, but for the most part, they worked, and it's not surprising that it was such a huge success. Now we have Deadpool 2, released 2 years later. We have humor that manages to surpass the original. Nearly every joke in this movie works, but I felt that the story became a colossal or colossus mess. Perhaps it's because the film was released quickly after the original, or maybe Tim Miller was onto something when he left the project due to creative differences. Don't mistake this review for a negative one, because the film still works. It had solid performances, a great soundtrack, excellent pop culture references, and levity, but I'm surprised that this film somehow managed to create such a twisted plotline that Infinity War, which features nearly 50 more characters, made more sense. This film has themes and character dynamics that it really feels is the crutch of the story, but there's never enough focus on the important aspects. Many story beats and relationships are taken for granted when they need more development. You can't just assume the audience will roll with what you're saying. I'm sure this is stuff that most audiences will ignore since it's the humor that drives the series, and honestly maybe the writers had that intention, but I didn't have an emotional pull towards anything during this film, and that includes the relationship between Wade and Vanessa, but there's a slight chance that a plot device pissed me off so much that I couldn't really stay focused for the rest of the viewing. The first film went on a journey to go against the grain of superhero tropes. The movie was funny and enjoyable, but I never thought it was doing anything much different from any other comic book movie. It has a damsel, it had the origin story, and the only difference was that they were breaking the fourth wall. In Deadpool 2, tropes are actually spoofed, such as the superhero team being quickly assembled in an unreasonable amount of time, and in this film it kinda backfires. Yet, like the first film, it relies on other tropes, including one that is so common and so annoying that, based on the trailers, I was predicting it would happen, and I was really hoping I would be wrong, but sadly, I was right. I'll go more into that in a second, but if you don't want spoilers, I'll just say that this movie is definitely worth the price of admission. It did its job, sometimes better than the first film, but if you're a fan of logic or development, this is not the best representation of that. Okay, on to spoilers. Ready? Okay? Here we go. They kill Vanessa. The film has an excellent opening, and then they kill Vanessa. Why? Why would you do this? This is such an overused trope, and I loved their unique relationship from the first film, which she was also absent from for a majority of, so why take her out of this one too? And yes, technically in the after credits scene she comes back, but the damage was done. This is a film about Wade's girlfriend dying and the so-called emotional trauma he has, which somehow becomes a story of being a protector towards this child who's considered dangerous. I love the continued themes of bigotry, which are in a lot of X-Men films, and even here it's blatantly pointed out in the fourth wall break, but this relationship dynamic between Wade and Russell just doesn't work because it's never expanded upon. So much is rushed, and meanwhile we have Cable basically doing the plot from Looper. I love this character, but his backstory and history, while hinted at, is also rushed. Most of it is glossed over in exchange for jokes, which most people will love, and you can argue that the dynamics aren't meant to be taken seriously, but the first film and this new one do the same thing. They have jokes, they think they're going against the grain of superhero films, which the second one does more of, but at the end of the day, they are still trying to give an emotional core, which I thought worked in the first film, but here, with so much going on, there's no time to focus. I liked Ryan Reynolds in this role, I liked the new characters of Cable and Domino, and I liked the continued appearances of the past film's characters, but the plot got so tiresome that I couldn't help but think of the motive of this whole film. Killing Vanessa was just stupid. It could have been written out, there could have been a different way to do it, it just felt lazy. And yes, this film can point out that it's lazy, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it's still lazy. I like that this film was more colorful than the first one, and I think the action sequences were shot well enough, but I couldn't help but think of how this film emulates other messy sequels like Kick-Ass 2 or Amazing Spider-Man 2, films which try to fit so much in that it just becomes a lost mess. The only saving grace is the non-serious attitude, which can be used as a defense for only so long. It's a film I feel split about. I laughed my ass off, but I felt no emotion. And there's other comedies that do that too, but that's the thing. Do I start considering those good movies, or are they going to age over time if the humor doesn't always work in the future? Perhaps I'll change my mind after a rewatch, but maybe I'll just hold out that Deadpool 3 will be the one to really prove itself. Thanks for watching the video. A special thanks to Ryan for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to join him and get early access to certain videos and have your name stamped on the end of videos and even request reviews monthly, then please click on the Patreon link, and thanks for the support.